Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast. This week on the show, I'm joined by my longtime co-hosts, Dan Johnson and Tony Peterson, to discuss our 2024 goals, hopes, and hit lists.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, your guide to the whitetail woods. Presented by First Light, creating proven, versatile hunting apparel for the stand, saddle, or blind. First Light. Go farther, stay longer. And now, your host, Mark Kenyon.
All right, welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, brought to you by First Light and their Camo for Conservation initiative and the brand new whitetail line that just came out this summer. All sorts of exciting stuff on that front, but we are excited to be here today because if you're listening to this when it drops, it is the end of August, which means hunting season is basically here. The three of us here on the show today have hunts kicking off relatively soon. We're excited, and we are here to do our annual goals, hopes, and hit lists show. So joining me is Mr. Daniel Johnson and Tony Peterson, my two longtime partners in crime, brothers from another mother, bad influences on me. They've brought me down for years, still doing it today. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Wow. Well, if we were brothers from another mother, you would have been an accident because we're so much older than you. So you would have been an unplanned pregnancy.
Well, that explains a lot, I would say.
I think we can all agree that Mark was probably an accident anyway. Right?
And also, Tony, how are you in any way surprised by me saying that you guys have been bringing me down? Like, how can you act shocked by that?
Listen, Mark, I don't know if the listeners know this or not, but you have altered the course of my life since April with that deer poop video that we made. And at first they were all going after you. And I was like, this is perfect. I'll just lay low. And now I have people coming out of the woodwork and they're like, I saw this video of you guys eating deer poop. And I'm like, oh my God.
I had someone the other day come up and say, hey man, my brother told me about this video. And he asked me if you were actually eating deer poop or not. You weren't really eating deer poop, were you? I'm like, man, how do so many people not get the joke?
My father-in-law does not even have an email. I mean, that's where he's at in life. And I sat next to him at one of my daughter's softball games the other night. And he's like, hey, this guy that I used to work with sent me a text and said he saw a video of you eating deer poop. And it's like, how do you explain that to a guy who doesn't have... You know what I mean? Like, I was like,
Yeah.
So basically what we're getting at here is I'm the only one on this episode that has not had deer poop in their mouth.
Hey, Dan, don't kink shame us. It's 2024, buddy.
Yeah, man. I wouldn't call this kink shaming, buddy.
You can do whatever you want now, buddy.
In Mark's case, I would.
Anyways, to be clear with anyone who's listening who did not see this video, we did not really eat deer poop. We opened a video pretending to eat deer poop. It was just chocolate covered raisins. I told a funny story about how I've been like told this joke before. And then we revealed at the end of the video, but I think a lot of people just saw the social clip or they watched the first part of the video, but they didn't see the very end. So we may now, Tony, not be known in the history books as the hosts of a pretty decent hunting podcast or being half decent writers or doing some films. We're just going to be those guys that ate the deer shit.
Yep.
So
that's what I've been telling everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Career defining moment, Marcus.
Yeah. Who would have
Throwaway video that we did for fun. Now that's who we are.
That is who we are.
Mark,
man.
You're like the male version of that Hawk Tuah girl. Now.
So this is a sad admission maybe, but I don't know what the Hawk Tuah thing is.
All right. Well, we probably shouldn't talk about it then.
Okay.
Well, here's what it is. No, I'm just joking.
I've seen people like say those words, but I've not seen the original impetus for the meme or whatever. So, all right. We'll do that. I'll trust you on that. Are you guys, where's your temperature? Dan, we talked about this earlier this week, but where's like your guys' temperature on the hunting season? Are you feeling ready? Are you feeling excited? Is this like full amped up? Are you still on the rise? Where do you stand?
Kick it off, Tony.
Mark, didn't you just ask Dan that question?
No, I said me and Dan talked about this a little bit earlier this week on his podcast.
Sorry.
But now I'm curious about where you're at today, Tony.
Where my temperature is at?
Yeah.
Not very warm, buddy. It might change after this weekend. I'm heading over with the girls to bait some bears and put up some blinds for some deer. But I don't know what happened. All the bucks I was getting on camera are just gone. And they've been gone for like a week. And a lot of natural bear movement showed up. So something changed for me. I don't think it's acorns. I've been out a little bit. I don't get that vibe, but maybe there's a lot of apples hitting the ground or some kind of soft mass situation going on. So I would say if it's like a 1 out of 10, I'm at like a 3 right now. Although I do have a really big bear to work. So I know that doesn't do us much good for this podcast, but maybe that brings me to 4.
Okay. 4 for you. Dan, what about you?
Well, the second that my kids stepped on the school bus today, the temperature jumped. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was basically in a seasonal depression, basically from the last day of school until the first day of school hits.
Mm-hmm.
And now the kids are on the bus. I can start focusing. I can go organize my garage, get my gear ready, shoot my bow more, start planning my first hunt in October, and I guess start putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And temperature is rising. I'm not going to give it a number, but I'm just saying it's going up and up and up.
Nice. I'm gonna say that I guess I'm a little ahead of the game on you guys. I've got a pretty high temperature. I'm pretty amped. I just wrapped up my whitetail prep on most of at least my main zone. I did my last projects, got my last projects done yesterday. So I'm feeling good about that. I've got one other new property I've got to scout and do a little bit of work on. I got to go up to deer camp next week and get some stuff done there. But once that's done, I think I'm ready. So I'm excited. I'm excited for whitetail. So I'm like at a 6, 7 and rising. And then I'm have like a low underlying stress for my Alaska trip coming up, which we'll get to and talk about more. But I do not feel ready for that. And I feel just like an underlying low grade ambient stress level all the time now. Whenever I think about that, like between my son, my oldest son with a broken leg, he's been like waking up in the middle of the night, like crazy itching. And then last night, my younger son woke up just like saying he was hungry and then just crying. And so every time I've been woken up in the middle of the night, when I go lay back down in bed, I all of a sudden just start having these like, are you ready for this thing? Did you plan for this thing? Do you have that thing packed? Do you even know what to do in that situation? Is that figured out? All for this Alaska thing. So I'm trying to get excited, but mostly just panicked on that front.
Yeah. If I were you, I would be panicked too. Cause that's
It is.
I would not be comfortable where you're at right now.
How hard is it to call an outfitter, Mark? That's all you're doing, right?
No.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if it was just a phone call or not.
Man, Dan.
Wow. Kitty likes to scratch.
Uh-huh. But we'll get to my Alaska stuff in more detail, but I want to lead with you guys. And the idea here with this podcast, for anyone who hasn't heard one of these, is that we just want to get everyone listening, everyone in our audience is up to speed on our plans for the coming year, what our goals are, what particular adventures or experiences or deer we're chasing this year, what we're going after, kind of setting the stage so that as we, go through the hunting season, they kind of know what we're getting after, and hopefully something to look forward to hearing about. So Dan.
Yes.
Do you want to open us up? Do you want to give us a rundown of the Daniel Johnson hunt schedule this year?
Okay. It's real simple. This year is October 1st, first trip, South Dakota, looking for mule deer. Met this dude online, and
as all good stories start.
Met this guy online. Actually, he reached out to me via Instagram, and he's like, "Hey man, my crew that I go with doesn't want to go or can't go this year. And we hunt relatively in the same areas. And he's like, dude, you want to team up and go and try something different? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And
Hold on.
Yep.
Before we go any further, how do you not fact check, but like creep check this dude? Like, how do you know you're not getting to a situation where you're going to come home married to a new person?
Yeah, so I go to the sex offender's website and basically check his address and see if he lives there, and that's pretty much my only check.
That's it. If he clears that bar, we're okay.
If he clears that bar, we're good to go. And then it's just pulled. I'll get in the car with a stranger. I don't care.
Okay.
I mean,
especially if they promise me good deer hunting.
Mark, doesn't this feel like this is going to show up on a Dateline episode?
Oh, for sure. This is how those documentaries start, Dan.
Yeah.
As long as Keith Morrison is the narrator, I'm all good, dude.
It'd be a hell of a way to go. Okay. So what if I'm, and maybe because I'm like socially, like I'm more just paranoid about getting into weird situations. But have you ever thought about like, are there strings attached? Are there weird obligations that you're going to feel like now become a thing because of this? Is there anything weird about him being like knowing everything about you and knowing you and your world and you not knowing anything about him? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
That kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I get it. And so it's just all about expectations, right? Like, so the first conversation that we had was, hey man, I would love to come out with you. We can go bounce on your spots. We can go bounce on the spots that I've accumulated. And there's so much public land out in South Dakota, west of the Missouri, that it's really, for me, it's not a huge issue. It's not like, and as we all know, there's no real secrets in public land anymore. And so, there's spots that are better than others, and some years they're good. And especially out in South Dakota, man, there's years where the rain is good. The grass is tall and the deer are there. And then there's other years where there's a cattle rotation and all those same things happen, but the cattle rotation hits that parcel and it's not good anymore. And so one thing that I've found out, especially in those scenarios, is you can scout as much as you want, but you don't know cattle rotations. You can check the rain. You can maybe talk to some locals that are out there, but once you get there, you're starting from scratch anyway. Get to the point, start glassing, and then you got to just go where the deer are at. And so I'm not too concerned about the sharing a spot and then him telling his buddies and then him telling his buddies, because I went to spots that people told me about and I didn't see anybody there. And so I don't know. I'm not really worried about that. But as far as setting expectations are concerned, we went out, we're going to go to a couple spots if that he has that are closer, like in the central part of South Dakota. But then after that, if we don't run into anything, we're going to bounce further west and go to some of the spots that I've kind of accumulated over the years. And I just set the expectation like, hey, dude, I'm willing to do this. No big deal. I'm willing to try anything with anybody really. But I can't, like, Tony, shut up, dude. But I can't promise you're going to be able to come hunt on any farm that I have in Iowa. Right. So like, I'm not doing that trade. And so, but most of the people that I've done this with, this is the second guy, like I met another guy on, Jesus Christ. I met another guy on Instagram.
It's becoming a trend.
Right. And we went out to Nebraska one year. How
lucky is Dan that he didn't have Instagram back during his college years? Can you imagine what kind of trouble he might have got in?
Dude, I'd have like 30 kids.
And some other stuff.
Yeah.
I just want you to keep going, buddy.
Yeah.
Keep talking, Dan.
Keep going.
I can't wait to see these
better
clips,
for Mark and I.
These social clips that are just going to be cut to me talking about meeting dudes on the internet.
Yep.
But you get it, right?
Continue.
Yeah. So, just manage expectations. We talk about what we're looking for. And he's like, here's what I've got. And then I say, here's what I've got. Balance it out. I'm not sure if we're driving together yet or if we're meeting out there, because if it sucks, we could possibly split up and go different directions. But I'm to the point now in my attempt to kill a mule deer that I'll do just about anything, because I've gone out there and I've struck out. Jesus, Tony, dude, can you shut his video off?
No, I'm just
so I don't have to
with
look
you. That first muley's tough, buddy.
Yeah, man. Hey.
So, but on a serious note, like I am really looking forward to going and hunting mule deer. Bye. See ya. Got a phone call, guys. Got to
go. Tell me this, Dan.
Yeah.
Is there any big learning you've taken from these? How many 5 or 6 years you've gone out now?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the big aha thing you're bringing to the table, or big change? Is there anything that you're saying like this year I'm going to do this differently?
I got over 20 years in a tree stand hunting whitetails, right? Hop in a tree, the scent and stuff like that. Here's where I go wrong mule deer hunting every year. Spot something. I've started to learn that you can't just spot a deer and move in on it. You have to look for all the other deer in the area. Okay. So I know that. But the thing about this terrain that these deer are hunting in are you go on approach. Okay. You got the deer locked in. You see the other deer. You put a plan together in, and then you drop down in. You're sneaking around, and then there's 4 other does standing there, already on their feet, looking at you that you never saw, because you can drop down 3 feet, turn behind you, and see exposed terrain that you did not see while you're standing in that location because of the grass, because of I don't know. It's crazy out there. And so I'm learning how to get close to them without getting busted. Now, if there's no other deer around, I can get close. And then usually it fails somewhere around the getting into shooting range type of scenario. But when it comes to, I am failing right now because I'm not seeing deer that I need to see before I go on approach.
Are you, Dan, what's the smallest deer? What's the lowest standard mule deer that you would stalk?
Legal.
Anything.
Any legal deer out there, I'm putting an arrow in. You can't hunt mule deer does in the zone for non-residents that I go to. So that's out of the question. But outside of that, any legal mule deer buck is now on the table.
Nice.
Do you know what I would tell you? Having hunted out there, I've spotted and stalked mule deer out there some. I'd try really hard to go find one of those little groups of 1.5 years, 2.5 type bucks, and I would figure those deer out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they kind of tend to do their own thing a little bit, and they can give you a little bit to work with.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
And I've tried that. Honestly, I have. But so I don't know about what you have seen out there, but I get out there, I spot a deer. I'm like, I don't care what it is. But they're still in some kind of bachelor group. And usually the time of year that I go, the bachelor groups have a decent mature buck in it. Now, I'm not talking a giant antler wise, but an older deer that is experienced. And it seems to me that these younger deer are hanging around this older buck for some sort of reason. And so the perfect example was last year, spotted a herd of bucks. I mean, there was a bachelor group of bucks. This was late October, no does. And the big, mature, old, large antler, large body deer sat on this knob. And all the other, younger bucks sat in a circle around him. So how the hell am I supposed to stalk in on that? Right. And they're so, everybody says mule deer are dumb, but they are so smart with where they bed that it's oftentimes impossible to even get in unless you're shooting 100 yards. And I'm not shooting 100 yards. So.
Have you ever thought that maybe this style of hunt just isn't in the cards for you, Dan? Because I gotta imagine a Yukon Cornelius character the size of an offensive lineman trying to sneak in on a bunch of deer. Maybe you're just not made for it, buddy.
Next question.
I think you're made for it. Dude, when you're a whitetail hunter and going out and spotting stock of critters is hard. I mean, most of us usually just get there and kill a bunch of stuff, but you probably will too, Dan.
Someday.
Yeah, someday. But I've been close, dude. I've even arrowed deer. My first year out, and all I knew back then was get downwind of them, and if they're in a position where you can get on top of them and shoot down at them. That's all I knew. And so that's what I tried. And I've gotten really, really close to deer that way. However, it's either my mistake or the wind shifts. I don't know how many times right at the time where deer start to get on their feet at the end of the day, there's been a gust of wind hit the back of my neck and I'm toast. And it's as simple and as quick as that. I'm in. Toast.
How about this fella you met on Tinder or whatever? Has he killed any?
Yes, he has, Tony. He's
I think it's Grinder. Anyways, I'm very excited to hear how this hunt goes, Dan. I think it's going to be great for you culturally and hunting wise, and
I think it's really just going to be like social media clips of me at gas stations filling up gas and eating food. That's really all you're going to see.
We'll enjoy that as well.
Or, pictures through a spotting scope at like 600 yards away.
Dan, in all seriousness, my elk hunting partner is a phenomenal Western hunter, and I've mule deer hunted with him. And one of his things that really makes a difference on mule deer hunts is he is so meticulous about finding one in the middle of the day bedded.
Oh yeah.
Because you always want that first couple hours and the last couple hours, but then you have a lot of deer moving and on their feet. And he has really taught me how to sit there and pick apart drainages and go find that bedded deer. Because if you find him bedded at 11 o'clock in the morning, that deer might not move, really might not move for like 4 hours or 5 hours. So but it's so hard. You get into that mode where you just overlook them.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's kind of something that when I hunted with him, I was like, man, I've been doing this wrong on every spot and stock hunt I've had.
Yeah. And yes, I get up, I go, and I'll take a little break throughout the day maybe, but I'm going from one drainage to the next or walking to a high point, picking everything apart. I do that all day long. Okay. Here's another issue that I've run into with spot and stock. And this is something that I am still really green at, is first and second beds, right? With mule deer. I don't know how familiar you guys are with this, but I've been doing a little reading on this and like researching and listening to guys out there, like Marlon Holden. Do you guys know who he is? He's just a straight mule deer slayer. Okay. And so he talks about first and second beds a lot, and you'll see like, okay, they come out, they bed down. It's like 8, 9 in the morning. You go to make a stock on them, but when you get into range, they're not even there anymore because the sun hit them. They moved up for the second bed of the day into a place where now it's going to be a little more shady all day. And so I've ran into that issue a lot. And so you start to read up on some of this stuff, like these mule deer, guys won't even stalk them on their first bed. They'll wait till they stand up and go to a second bed, and then they're there for 6 hours or whatever the case may be. So it's just a learning process is all it is. It's just a hard one for me at this point.
What about Iowa? Well, you've got 2 whitetail trips, right?
Right. I got Iowa this year, and I'm really starting to get frustrated with this newer property where I've killed the deer, the last, 2 years now. And so now I went and put my cameras out, deer there, great deer. They're ghost town, just kind of like what Tony was saying. It's ghost town now. Just a couple does, and then the dog issue again, right? Neighboring dogs. And I'm starting to get extremely frustrated with this. When I go down to this farm, I'm driving 3 hours to get there. 2:45, 3 hours to get there. You go hunt, and then some dogs run through, blow it out. And I don't care what people say about dogs as far as long-term effect on the landscape, but short-term, if I'm in a tree stand and dogs run through, they scare the deer away, and that ruins that particular hunt. Now, I got to do something, because I called the sheriff, I called the conservation officer, I've been in touch with the landowner. It's just nothing's changing. So I think what I'm going to take, I don't know if you guys saw what Bomar did or said on one of his podcasts. Yeah. but just chill, Tony. But I'm going to put him in my truck and I'm going to drive him back to my hometown and I'm going to put him in the pound. And so they have to drive 3 hours to come get that dog. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So I got to do something. I can't kill them because they're collared. And so I've done my due diligence. Now it's time to take some action.
So
what's the? Hey, Mark, just quick.
Yeah.
We've gone very quickly from worrying about Dan getting kidnapped to Dan getting in trouble for dog napping.
Yes, this is. I'm so glad that we opened with Dan.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
So what's the plan for catching a dog in this situation? Are you bringing a leash? Are you bringing treats? Do you have some way to do you bring a cage for the back of your truck, or is he going to sit in the front seat with you, ride shotgun?
So when I went, not last year, but the year before, I believe it was, it took me a while to find that deer, right? It took me a day to find that deer. When I was out grid searching, that dog was there. German Shepherd was there. And I was like, come here, boy, and he seemed friendly. And so I was like, get out of here, get out of here. This year, if I see him, I'm just going to coax him and just be like, come here, take a leash, tie him to a tree up at the farmhouse. And then when I leave, I'm taking him with me. So.
Okay. I just want to make this very clear. Number one, I am supportive of any and all. No, not supportive. I am accepting of any and all choices you make with your life, Dan, but I also do not condone criminal offenses, kidnapping dogs, just so we're clear.
Is it kidnapping? Is it kidnapping though? Like I have been in contact with every single person that I need to be in contact with, right? Those dogs are on a property that they should not be in, right? And although I'm not the landowner, I have responsibilities to that property through the landowner. And so like, I don't know what to do. So let me ask you a question. Same thing happens to you and you're driving to another state, to another county, and these dogs are ruining every single hunt and all the hard work that you've done, and nothing is done about it. And you can't do anything about it. In Iowa, they have a law that says if this dog does not have a collar on it and it is a nuisance, you can shoot it. But both of these dogs have collars on them. So I can't shoot these dogs, but they are a nuisance. And so I don't know what the next step is. I mean, I've done my due diligence. I've communicated to these people that this is causing me problems and nobody cares about it. Nobody's doing anything about it. The landowner, the dogs are still running on these properties for the past 3 years now, and I'm done with it. And so I'm going to take them and I'm going to go put them in a pound somewhere.
I think that catching a stray random German Shepherd is going to be a great way for you to have the Eight Fingers Chronicles here pretty soon.
They're not stray though. They belong to a neighboring farm.
No, have you talked to that guy?
Yes.
Have you talked to those people?
Yes.
That own the dogs?
Yes.
So Dan, weirdly, one of my buddies who lives down in Iowa, he has a lease down there, and the last 2 years he's had the same problem. 2 dogs running through there, blowing deer out constantly. He calls sheriff, CO, the whole thing, and I think the sheriff came in with traps to get those dogs. I think that's how it ended up going. Might have been the conservation officer, but he had the same problem, and it was all season long. Those dogs are on trail camera. Those deer were not on trail camera anymore. Blew it out. It's a really bad deal, honestly.
I just look at it from the conservation or the sheriff's time. Like, right. So in Iowa, there's like one conservation officer for every 2 counties, right? So okay, hey, I need you to take time out of stopping poachers and trespassers and all this stuff to take care of a couple dogs. It's probably really low on their priority list and it's not going to get any attention. However, and I don't make my money. I mean, I make my money somewhat in this space, right? I don't film my hunts. So it's not like I'm losing out on any content per se, but it pisses me off. I'm trying to do the right thing. And now it's time to take action, period.
One way or another, there will be good stories coming out of this. So I'm appreciative for that.
Yeah. I'll fight a dog if I have to. I'll bite one. I'll bite a dog, Mark.
I wouldn't put it past you.
So that's Iowa. On my main farm, I don't have any trail cameras out yet. I'm way behind on that farm. I think I told you about that last year where I had a ton of really good deer show up last year. And I think it's because actually they introduced cattle into these back pastures now that had been dormant for so many years. And the deer are now having to skirt around the pastures. They're not in the pastures. They're not crossing through the pastures. They're skirting it, which is where I hunt, and a lot more deer activity. So I'm really looking forward to getting some cameras out there and seeing what's going on there.
Is there, on either one of the properties, is there a buck that you're hoping is going to be back, or that you know of that you're extra excited about, or several deer like that? Anything in particular?
Yeah. So on the farm with the dogs, there's 3 deer that I've already identified as shooters, 4 years older or older. They're all about that 145 or higher type frame. My main farm last year had a stud clean 10, and he was like 160 plus last year. This year we're looking at, I don't have any knowledge of what's on that farm right now. So I'm guessing he makes a jump. He'll be booner status, clean 10. There's a couple other deer that their body is going to get them killed. They are like a 130 class 8-pointer, but they're at that 250, 275 body size. And so giant bodies, just like bodybuilder type bucks. And I'd shoot one of them as well. So as far as bucks are concerned, it's not like it used to be, but there are really good deer that I would shoot.
Nice.
Yep.
Kansas.
I mean, just e-scouting at this point. I'll be calling my uncle who lives down there here in a little bit. He has access to like a couple thousand acres down in Kansas, but thousands of acres in Kansas and thousands of acres in Iowa mean something completely different. So he lives in cattle pasture ground, creek systems. This is where really all the trees are at. So I might have access to one of the farms that he hunts on. It's still debatable because he shares that with another guy. And so I don't necessarily want to just say, hey, I'm your nephew. I want to come hunt your property. I just want him to have a conversation with his buddy and see if it's cool if I come there. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be expectations of what I can and cannot shoot. Like, I probably won't be able to shoot a extremely young up and comer deer, but depending on if I get access and this guy's cool with me going there, there's places I can go, there's places I can't go. And if that falls through, I've e-scouted walk-in Corps of Engineer ground, and I'm going to start bouncing around through all those places that I've e-scouted.
Nice.
Simple.
Just that easy. So, outside of you getting some restrictions placed on you by your uncle or other hunter, what do you think your goals are going to be for that trip otherwise?
I mean, I'd like to run into a 140 of some caliber. Like with any out-of-state hunt that I take, I can't compare it to what I have here. Right. Yeah. And so I have some really good ground here in Iowa. I understand that. And that, dude, I'm not opposed to shooting a 3-year-old who walks by. I'm down for the experience at this point. And I want a good deer with a good story and a good experience. And that might be a 120 class who walks through on the first morning, or that could be an accidental booner. You know what I mean? Just anything that comes within shooting range. I don't ever really say to myself, especially on out of state, here are my goals. I'm going to only live up to this one thing. It is really hunt by hunt, morning hunt, afternoon hunt. Am I tired? Am I hungry? Like, all these things come into play. And if it comes by and I'm in the mood to kill, I'm going to kill.
Like the infamous White Knuckle Productions video where you said that buck made me say, "Oh, yeah." So I shot him.
Yep, sure did.
Yep,
sure
that
did.
Was good. Well, that's exciting. And that'll be like I'm looking. Especially
forward to
it sounds like your uncle's stuff, like much more open country. It sounds like, so that can be
wide
pretty
open.
cool.
wide open. And I don't necessarily want to bait per se, but if things get hairy out there or I'm struggling, baiting might be in the cards because it's legal in Kansas. So I'm not, I don't know. I've never done it before, but it's a, what I would throw as like a Hail Mary type of deal.
Well, speaking of bait, Tony, are you baiting bears this year?
I am.
Yeah. What's your year look like? Man,
I'm going to spend September trying really hard to get the girls on some deer and a bear, obviously. I am going to, for the first time in a couple of years, get a chance to hunt for myself in Minnesota on opening week. So I'm kind of excited for that. And I don't know, I kind of mentioned earlier that my trail cameras have been, I don't have a lot of trail cameras out right now, but my bucks disappeared. But randomly this year, I've had big deer on most properties I'm hunting. And so it's kind of cool. Like I sent you that picture, Mark, of that one in Wisconsin. Yeah. And that deer, I have a November plan for that deer, and I'm going to ride out some time for him because he's, like Dan talked about those 275 pounders, that deer looks like right now he would dress over 200, no problem, but really I'm going to try to get the girls on some deer, maybe try to get myself on one. And, Minnesota this year, our gun season doesn't open till like November 9th, which is really late for us. So if I can wrap up my Iowa situation, I still have some time to hunt during the rut. So I'm kind of just, I don't know. I'm kind of just playing it cool in Minnesota and Wisconsin. I'm not like, really gung-ho to get out there for myself yet. I really want to get the girls on something, but I do have a mid-October North Dakota hunt that's just going to be fun. I'm going to head over onto the western side of the state, try to glass one up and kill one on a river bottom. And then I drew Iowa, and I'm going to go down and try to kill a big one on public land. And I have a plan for that one to try to decoy one, because I think I have a few spots where if I sit out all day with a doe decoy out, I think I can make it happen. And that one has me real excited.
Now you're taking in one of the full big bodied doe decoys like you used last year from Dave Smith. How are you going to get that deep into public land? Are you just going to strap that to your back?
I don't know yet, dude.
Haul it in? Because it's not really a portable decoy.
Right. The spot that I'm hoping to use it the most is not that far of a walk. It's just not that fun of a walk. And so I think it'll just be, I think what I'll have to do is go in the daylight, maybe a midday deal first, get it up there, set it up, and then just stash it under my tree or something. Or I don't know. I don't know yet how I'm going to play that. But that is like a real concern, right? Because especially, you're going in for an all day sit and carrying everything that you need, and then you got to carry that sucker in. But I think it'll be worth it. And so I'm going to have to figure it out. I'm going to have to, the last time I was down there, this spot I'm thinking about, I kind of mapped out a route to get up there that wasn't like terrible. And so it's easy to think about when you're sitting in your office and not trying to sneak through the woods with a full body decoy, but I'm going to figure it out because I just think it's going to be so fun, and I think it'll work.
How much success? I'm sorry, Mark. How much success have you had decoying in the past?
Not very much, but last season we used this decoy twice in a row and killed 2 bucks with it. My daughter killed one and I killed one, and it was like a magnet. And so,
what time of year?
November. Yeah. So I'm heading down to Iowa probably like October 26th, 27th, somewhere around there. So I'll be, like maybe a little bit early, but I don't know. I think it'll work. And it just, seeing how that decoy worked last year kind of changed how I view this, because I always looked at decoys like they really weren't much of an option for me. Like it wasn't something that I was going to build into a plan in any meaningful way. But last year I was like, we just got to try this, and I think it'll work. And it worked so well. And I tried it again, and it worked exactly the same way. And it kind of opened my eyes to this year. I'm thinking more not only about Iowa, but if I do rut hunt in Minnesota, I have some spots where I'm like, I think I can go ride it out all day, put out that decoy, and have a chance there too. So it's going to be a bigger part of my season. I don't know if it'll work out or not, but I'm definitely going to try.
So we talked about this a little bit last season, but just, for folks that are newer to this, the popular thing is to use a buck decoy, but you are using a doe decoy. How are you using it in this situation, and why do you think the doe is going to help you more than the traditional buck option?
Well, the original reason that I asked for the doe is, like where I'm hunting in northern Wisconsin, there's only like 8 deer per county, right? So I'm like, if I put out that Dave Smith buck, that's bigger than any deer that's probably going to come in. And any doe that sees it is not going to be happy with it. And so I'm like, I'm going to try this little doe. I kind of look at it as a difference of when you turkey hunt, you can put out a full strutter and you will get in certain birds, right? But some birds are like, nope, I'm going to skirt that and I'm going to show off out here in the field, but I'm not coming into that. But you put out that quarter strut Jake and push him low to the ground. Now every bird is like, I'm going to take a swing at that. And I just look at the doe decoy. I'm like, I think does will wig out less on it. Because I know, especially in Iowa and Minnesota where I'll use it, does will see it. And I think I'll have less of a negative reaction from a doe decoy standing there. And it's just going to allow it just, in my opinion, you open yourself up to every buck, not just the one who looks at that big postured up buck and wants to come in and fight it. Like I don't want to exclude bucks. Like if deer would potentially come in and sniff that decoy's butt, I want that to happen. And I don't want to push them off. And so I really think the buck decoy thing, especially that Dave Smith, the way it looks like, that's sending a pretty clear message, and you're not going to have a little deer come into that. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of decoy that could probably push off a 3-year-old, like the right 3-year-old, or even a bigger deer that's just not feeling the fight. And I just don't see that with a doe.
Interesting. This area, this public spot, you had like a really good buck there before, right? That's that same zone?
Yeah.
So high hopes.
And I think he's still there. I don't know. I mean, I had an encounter with him. I hit him in 2020, never found him. And I sent my buddy in there because he drew last year, and he had one come in that he thought was 180, and he was describing it. It's the same spot, and he missed it at 25 yards, totally fell apart. And
wow.
It's kind of, to me, I mean, who knows, right? That's a couple years apart, but it was a typical mainframe giant. And he had the same thing come out. He's like, it looked like the way he described it was perfect. He said, it looked like the final boss in a video game when I looked up, and I just think in that little area like that, what are the odds, right? Like, what are the odds there's a typical booner on public land in this spot when I'm there, and then still there or also there when my buddy goes in?
Although it is Iowa, aren't those behind every tree there?
They are. Yeah. It is the easiest place to hunt.
Okay. So you told me like a few weeks back we were together, and you said something along the lines of, you might, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure you said that you were thinking of like holding out for a really, really big buck in Iowa. How serious are you about that? Because usually you're, relatively flexible with your standards based on the situation and everything. How serious are you about passing, good bucks to hold out for that buck or something like it?
Will I hold out for that buck? I'm not sure, but I want a big one down there. I partially just because I want to spend the time. The last time I drew, that was when we did the back 40. And so I had to hunt in October, not November. Yep. So I didn't get to experience that spot during the rut. And the other 2 times I drew Iowa, I just did a rut hunt, So yeah, I don't know. I want a good one. It'll be, I'm going down there to have some fun.
Love it. So Iowa, high standards, exciting, decoy. North Dakota, doing your standard North Dakota thing. Any particular goal out there other than, shoot what you can get?
Well, the last time I was there, it was pretty dismal. That was, I think, 2 years ago. And so I'm kind of just curious about the numbers, but you know how it is. You can get out there and glass them up and figure out pretty quickly, kind of quantity wise what you're dealing with and quality wise. So I don't have a lot of hope for that one because I don't think the numbers out there are very good. So that might be kind of like Dan, South Dakota thing where you're like, get a legal deer in front of me. I don't know till I get out there, but I will say this. It's pretty interesting this year. And I don't know if you're seeing this or not, but I feel like the quality of bucks in general this year is just a little bit higher after last winter. And, like I talked about this before, but, we've been fishing a few tournaments and just like even in turkey season, shooting jakes, like they were heavier than they usually are. The fish are weighing heavier than they usually do. And it seems like there's a lot of good antler growth out there. And I just wonder if it's just correlated to how mild of a winter we had last year and how little stress those critters had.
On top of a really wet and plentiful spring.
Right.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I mean, I've seen more fawns on trail cameras this year than ever before with twins and triplets. I just don't know what that means, but I think the amount of rain that we've had this year there's going to be some giants coming out of places this year.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
I do too. So, hey, Mark, the other thing I'm going to do for the first time in a long time is I'm going to rifle hunt Wisconsin this year with one of my daughters.
Nice. At your Wisconsin properties up north?
Yeah.
Sweet.
This weekend, I am going to go poke around a little bit on some public land because I might spend a midday rifle hunting there, or I might bow hunt it too. But yeah, I'm kind of excited for that. I've really only rifle hunted like a few times in my life, and it's been probably 10 years since I rifle hunted a deer. So I think that'll be kind of cool.
Does it set up well up there for rifle hunting, or is it pretty tight? I mean, like my northern Michigan stuff, even with a rifle, it's like 50-yard shots or closer.
It's tight. It's like bow hunting with like a little advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's
cool
okay.
Though.
Yeah. And honestly, I am not a very good shot, so I don't want to be sitting on like a power line where I can shoot them 300 yards away because I'm just going to miss them anyway.
Yeah.
So I want them in bow range when I have a rifle.
Yeah, I'm not too far from that either. So Minnesota, you've got some closer to home stuff that you are hoping to target with an archery season, right?
Yep.
And then Wisconsin is where the bigger bucks, though, have shown up. The big bodied buck is Wisconsin, right?
Right. But I will say this. I have a little 25-acre chunk that I picked up last year close to my house, and there are 2 big deer in there. Like really, really good deer. But it's 25 acres, and it's suburban stuff. So there's sanctuaries everywhere. And so
is that the farm with the fruit tree in it?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's some apple trees in there that are real popular. But a lot of, this year over in Wisconsin where we're at too, we have some apple trees over there, and there were so many apples earlier, and I'm already starting to see a lot of them hitting the ground. In fact, one of the routes I run here by my house, I see apple trees in people's yards, and I kind of pay attention to them. And we've had pounding rain and a lot of wind lately, and it seems like already a lot of the apples are on the ground. So I'm kind of like, I don't know if that's going to be a pattern that lasts through our opener or not. It might be over.
So you got a lot on your plate, Tony. Minnesota, Wisconsin, rifle hunt, archery hunts, Iowa with high hopes, North Dakota, flyer hunt. What would be like a success if you had to like put one thing, if you could check a box next to one thing for this fall that would give you like this is a success? What's the one thing of all of these things you hope to put the check mark next to?
Man, I'm to the point now where I just want to hunt places I know I'm going to have a ton of fun. And so really, last year we had a really good year with the girls, and I had a good year. And so kind of at the end of the season, when I look at it, if I have like 5, 6, 7 deer in the freezer, and my daughter's got some deer, and I had some opportunities, I'm like, that's pretty good for me. I'm not really going down the hit list route just because of the places I hunt. Like I just can't. That's just not like a great way to go about it for me. So it's not like I got to get 3 big bucks or it's a failure. Like that North Dakota thing, there's a lot of places I could go that would be better, I think, but I just love it out there. You know that terrain, like it's kind of the same thing. The reason that Dan keeps going to South Dakota, it's not because it's just like a easy kill.
Yeah. It's not because he's killing anything,
dude. No. It's because the terrain is so cool, and it's just different from what you're used to. And I'm to the point now where I just like, I want as many hunts like that because I just love being there.
Yeah, I get that. That's awesome. Okay. Well, I guess that brings it to me. So I'll run you through the schedule real quick. As I alluded to earlier, I've got the big Alaska trip, in which first part of that trip is a blacktail hunt there in Southeast Alaska. Doing an interesting story film up there about some changes going on in that part of the world and why it's happening and why some different critters are showing up in places they never used to. So that's an interesting one. And then a few days, I'm spending a few days after that doing some salmon fishing, which will be cool. So that's like an almost 2-week trip, big excursion. Like I mentioned earlier, I feel, there's so many question marks around that. It's got me a little anxious, but also it's going to be one of those very special experiences. So excited about that.
What's your bear defense plan for that trip?
Well, I'll have bear spray and I have a 10 millimeter, a SIG P320, I think is what it is. So I'll have a 10 mil on the bino harness and bear spray underneath. And then there's also a friend going with me who's very experienced in the area and actually does like he leads like bear watching trips and all that kind of stuff up there. So the dude's like very Alaskan bear, brown bear savvy. So I feel really comfortable in grizzly country, like here in the lower 48. Spend a lot of time, and so I feel fine with that. But this does feel like slightly different. So it'll be nice to be with someone for that part of the trip who's experienced with that version of a grizzly. And
can you be real honest here? How much time have you spent standing in front of the mirror, pulling that pistol out of the holster and aiming it quickly? Because I know it's not zero.
Yeah, with my shirt off and face paint underneath my eyes.
What? You're
a tough man. You're big. You're strong, Mark. Yeah, not zero at all. That's a daily occurrence here. My wife's really loving it.
Is it an island hunt?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So super dense grizzly brown bear population. So big old suckers, I understand. I'd love to see some, like I think they're incredible animals. So I'd love to observe from afar. I just don't want anything too close.
Right.
Is this a rifle or a bow hunt?
Rifle.
Okay.
Yeah. So I will have plenty of firepower.
I talked with some of the Vortex dudes who went on that. Well, I think it was last year or the year before or something like that. And they had an absolute blast.
Yeah, it looked incredible. So, I think it'll be one of those life list trips, that I'll be able to look back on and have a great story and a heck of an experience. So I'm trying to get past the little bit of anxiety and just be like, hey, it's going to be fun. It's going to be an amazing thing. I will tell you, though, honestly, the thing that I'm dreading the most about it is, and this sounds so cheesy, but you guys will get it. It's a long time away from the kids. Like it's about as long of a trip as I'd ever want to do. I like a few years ago, I think I set my max. Like, man, I'm not doing any trips more than like 10 days. Like 7 days is really what I prefer. But this one has had to stretch out because there's all these travel. Like I have to hop on so many different planes, and there's all these travel logistics, and then tacking on there's the film, there's the blacktail hunt, and then I'm also doing this salmon thing for a project. And so there's no way I could do 2 separate trips to do all that. So the only way to do this is just to be a big trip. So it's going to be like 12 or 13 days, which is going to be tough. So,
well, and that's the kind of trip that could turn into longer just by weather for some of the flights you have, probably, huh?
Yeah. That's a fair point. You're at the mercy of the conditions. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be
it's a little hard to feel sorry for you.
Yeah. I'm not asking for any pity. Not asking for any pity. It'll be great. So that one's early September. And then I'm going to do a Kentucky public land hunt, which will be cool. But I have low expectations as far as like deer. That's for a project about we're telling a story about the Working for Wildlife tour I've been doing. So all these different public land habitat improvement volunteer days I've been going on. And we did one in Kentucky. And so we filmed that, and then we're going to come back and do a hunt in that area too. So we're able to tell that story and explore, that project, which will be really cool. But it's like big woods, big hills, no ag, just tough situation for trying to kill deer. So my hopes on that are just any legal deer, probably, unless I get out there and it's probably going to be November. Yeah, I think that's probably, I can't do it in September because I'm gone for 2 weeks already with Alaska. And then October, I want my first couple days for Michigan, like I always do. And then you and me, Tony, we've got to go to Louisiana for this MeatEater fishing thing. So that's like a big chunk of time in the middle of October. And then late October is usually my best time again for Michigan. Just one of my main zones here. Like for whatever reason, like late October is like when stuff really kicks off, a little bit earlier than other places I hunt. So I think it makes sense to push the Kentucky thing to November, both because of those things I just described, but then also because this hunt is probably going to be like a terrain thing, like sitting terrain funnels. And that's obviously a rut thing. So probably that'll be the game plan for Kentucky, is find some kind of saddle, find some kind of, funnel, some kind of topography that pushes whatever deer travel is there into a smaller zone and ride it out. So
might get on a water thing down there too.
Yeah, maybe. I guess I never thought about that at that time of year, but yeah. And I'm sure, find the oaks too. So that's Kentucky. I picked up some surprise kind of access in Illinois recently. So I'm going to be going down to Illinois in November as well. And this is a situation where got access to a bunch of properties through a friend of a friend who is, being very generous with me and a couple friends to go and hunt their spots. We're going to help him with like some marketing stuff that he wants some help with. And it's an interesting one because it's all new, but it also is probably better than most anything I've hunted in the past as far as like potential. Because this is, primo Illinois ground that's not being heavily hunted, and that we kind of have free reign on. We do have free reign on a bunch of this. So part of me just wants to be like, hey, you're not going to have a ton of time. Just shoot a decent buck. Part of me says, though, geez, like, you don't have to shoot a buck. You could just kind of like you're saying, Tony. It's like, it's just fun to hunt in an area where you have the chance to see something like extra special that I just would never see in my usual places. And this is the kind of spot, like, it's not unheard of that I could see a 180-inch buck or something. I could see the biggest deer in my life down here. So part of me just wants to be like, hey, let's just ride it out, see what happens, because you could see a giant. And I haven't had a chance to like hunt really big deer for a number of years now. Just haven't had the place that's got that. So I might just kind of see what comes through and have some fun with it and try to like see the thing, like enjoy the Illinois, kind of like the Iowa, experience. So I'm excited about that, but don't have a whole lot. It's all new. So I'd got like one day I went down there a week or two ago and just did like a speed scout, like drove around, glass, checked out these properties on the road, did a quick run through of 5 different parcels. They were mostly like, there's like a 20, there's like an 18, there's 2 20s, there's an 80, there's a couple other ones that are bigger that we can access earlier in the year and late in the year, but not in November. So there's kind of a collection of a bunch of different spots, and I just try to get like a quick idea of like what's the lay of the land, put out a few cameras. The cameras have been dead so far, so I have no idea what might be out there eventually, but I imagine there will be something exciting once we get into the season. So that's Illinois.
Were you down there with Tyler and Casey?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're going to watch those guys burn through 20-acre property in 8 minutes?
It's funny. Casey said to me, he's like, it's going to be great hunting with you because I know you're not going to go mess something up for me. I'm like, yeah, you're going to be the one messing up for me. I recognize that.
Right.
Fortunately, there's enough like different little spots. Like I think we're going to be able to spread out and have some fun. And again, like I've got not low expectations, but I'm not like worried about it. I'm not super stressed. Like I don't have a lot into it yet. So this is just like, hey, go have a fun adventure, see what's possible out there, learn these new places, try to have a good time with it. So that's Illinois. And then of course, Michigan, the family deer camp, going to be going up there for gun season with the kids and my dad and uncles and friends. So excited about that one. Continue to see that place improve. Last year, we put a lot of time into improving it and did not have the success hunting, didn't see much hunting, but we had pictures of more mature bucks than ever before in daylight, like all around us. There's a giant 110 yards or 140 yards or something away from my dad while he was out there hunting. So like we're in the mix. They're around like 3 or 4 or 5 different mature bucks all there at the same time. We've never ever have had that. And like deer, not just mature deer, but like deer that I would shoot anywhere, caliber deer. So that's exciting.
Hold on. Isn't it? I think there's an interesting like case study here where you talk about going to a brand new place in Illinois and the trophy potential there and what you can run into and the focus on that and how fun that'll be. And then at the same time, you're like, we've got this up north Michigan property that in your head, you kind of think of as being like a way lower quality place, but now you have good deer there, but you wouldn't prioritize that over Illinois. You know what I mean? Like, even though you have this little pocket of big ones, it's like that pull of the premier whitetail state's so hard to get over.
For sure. And it's there's still like a deer density thing too. Like knowing there's some mature bucks up north has been very exciting, but still, like I went the entire hunting season there last year, seeing 1 deer. And I'm not a horrible deer hunter. And I saw 1 deer up there, even though like, maybe. So I am still living on like hope and pictures up there. Right. So we're making progress. The photos I know it will happen eventually for someone. We're going to get a deer up there. It's going to be amazing, but it's still like a slog, So my hope is that we're going to get to a point where we can go and sit with the kids and like have a decent chance of seeing deer, just making it exciting for the kids and for my dad to be able to shoot something up there would be great. So that's the hope. And yeah, we're going to be going up there here next week probably and do a little bit of final prep work there. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Fingers crossed. And then Southern Michigan, that's where a lot of my attention has been recently, just getting ready on the local stuff. And then kind of the 2 big stories there are I lost one of my big permission farms this year, but I also picked up some new permissions. On one of those new permission pieces, I'm particularly excited about. It's 60 acres, of which 56 of it is cornfield, but the 4 acres of cover are tucked up next to a big swamp system in an area that I've always known has good deer. Like I drive around here a lot, summer evenings looking for deer. So for years, I've known this zone has some good deer because, usually swamps are where deer get age in Michigan because you can just get away from hunting pressure. And so a number of years ago, I knocked on a bunch of doors around here, tried to get permission. At one point, I did get a permission that lasted a year, saw a really good buck, lost permission the next year. But finally picked up a new access, just 4 acres. But those 4 acres, like I said, there's some oaks, there's like super tall grass, brushy, nasty stuff. I went in there and scouted. When I was slipping in there scouting, I saw and bumped like probably a 3-year-old 8-pointer that was just feeding in the standing corn that didn't see me until my wind swirled. And then I bumped another buck that was at least a 3-year-old, if not older, bedded in the tall grass, like 100 yards from there. So just when I walked through there, saw 2 bucks that were probably 3 or older. I put up 2 cameras, which is pretty dense for 4 acres, but I put 2 cameras on 2 different good-looking kind of entries off of that swamp into this corn, and I have 1 slammer mature buck that's like, he has at least 12-inch brow tines, if not taller, like really cool. Another like really solid 8-pointer, a 12-pointer that's not like a huge antlered one, but like a lot of points on him, like a cool deer. He's 3 or 4. So like at least 3 deer that I'm pretty interested in taking a shot at. And I wouldn't be shocked if, there's plenty more that roll through once you get later into the season too. So excited about that little hidey hole spot. There's a couple other zones that I have to still scout and explore on these new accesses. There's another piece that's a little bit bigger that I'm hoping to check out next week. And long story short, would be fun to have some success on one of these new spots. And then there's the local area I've hunted for many years where I've got these deer I've gotten to know over the years. And big story there is there's 2 bucks back from past years. There's the deer my oldest son named Bulldozer. Passed him a bunch as a 3-year-old. Passed him last year as a 4-year-old during gun season. We found his match set this spring. My youngest son, Colt, I found it first and pretended not to know it was there and went back, got Colt, brought him out. He got to find it, pick it up. Super exciting. So he's a 5-year-old, huge-bodied deer, like really, really big body buck. He's blind in one eye, got injured in a fight last year, seems like. And he's just like a solid 9-pointer. So he's one of the bucks I'd be interested in taking a crack at. And then the second one is a 4-year-old who passed a bunch last year. And my youngest son decided to call him Bear Deer. So Bear Deer blew up. He's big. He's a really big mainframe 9-pointer with an inside tine off of his right G2. So technically he's got 10 points, tall, great tine length, like a big deer. Biggest
Frank big?
Close. He's probably the closest I've had to that since Frank. He's pushing towards that mark. So that's another interesting one. And both of them, I've been able to glass them this summer. I've got lots of pictures of them. They're hanging out a lot right now. Over the past 2 years, both of them were pretty homebody-ish during the season. So I have decent expectations of them hanging around. And I feel like pretty well dialed on, they always throw you curveballs. So I know I'm not too confident in any one plan, but I've got a decent sense of how I want to approach it and excited about that. Both the boys are super excited. This is an area that they've been able to scout with me, that they've been able to be on hunts with me in the past. They've seen these deer in the past. So what I like about this area is like the family has been very involved in it, and that makes it fun in a different kind of way. So that's the season. That's what I've got on the docket. Would love to shoot one of those 2 bucks in Michigan. Would love to kill a buck either up north or one of these bonus properties with lower standards. Any deer in Alaska, any deer in Kentucky, Illinois, we'll kind of see how it is. Like I said, I might want to just ride it out and see what's possible. And biggest goal, though, above all of those things is, this has been the same thing the last 2 years, but I just want to keep it fun, avoid the stress, avoid, the downside of diehard deer hunting. Like, just keep it fun, enjoy myself, and everything seems to work out better when I'm doing that rather than overanalyzing, overstressing, overworking myself up about this. Because I think maybe you and I were talking about this, Dan, but like, we're not curing cancer. We aren't rocket scientists. We're not doing anything that's that important. We're out there hunting deer. It's not the end of the world if something goes wrong. It's not the end of the world if the plan's not going right. It's not the end of the world if I make a stupid mistake. Just enjoy it. Soak it up. Enjoy time outside. Get out there with the family. Try to pursue my goals, but do it in a way that is, like filling my cup, not draining it. So that's the focus again this year.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But there's something, especially when I go out to South Dakota, and Tony, you mentioned it about the environment, that I just love the Plain States, man. There's something about sitting on top of a hill and looking for infinity until your eyes just can't work anymore. There's something about that I love. But there's also this aspect of that I feel, especially you really feel it when you go on an elk hunt, especially at higher elevations where your body is just wasted by the end of the day. Okay. And there's something about falling asleep before your head hits the pillow in your sleeping bag that I know I did something right, whether I felt like it or not, because of the physical energy that I put into those hunts. And so there's something about that I don't get with whitetail hunting. And so to me, when I feel that and I'm walking up the last hill to my truck of the day and my legs are just screaming at me, or I don't know, I'm exhausted and all I want to do is stuff my face before I fall asleep, then that's a successful day for me. Right. And so it's different. It's different for whitetail because I've been doing it so long, and it's, I don't want to say it's easy, but I'm knowledgeable about it, which makes it easier for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lot less of that guessing involved. So that's why I love going out west, because you're guessing at sometimes like, shit, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to go. And because you have to go. If you don't go, then you're just sitting in your truck. And I don't know. I love that.
Well, dude, those hunts like you're talking about, that mule deer hunt, I think that's like the most fun you can have with a bow. Go hunt breaky terrain, go spot and stalk mule deer. So fun. All day fun.
All day.
Yeah, that's a good point. Final words of wisdom, or a final thought you want to leave folks with as we're about to kick off hunting season. Is there any last thing before folks start hitting the woods, start hitting the mountains, start hitting the plains, whatever it is? What do you want to leave them with? Dan, you lead us off.
I feel, especially for bow hunters and all new hunters, shoot as many deer as you have tags for. If you're a new hunter, or you are a even somewhat experienced hunter, fill your tags. Shoot your rifle, shoot your bow, fill the freezer, right? I don't know. That's something that I don't want to say I regret, but it's something that I wish I did when I was first starting out, because I skipped a whole bunch of steps and went right into hunting big mature deer. And I wish there for a couple of years, I would have went into it's brown, it's down type mode. And so my suggestion for anybody out there, especially if you're even experienced guys, just shoot a couple does, man. Just let the arrows fly, let the bullets fly, stack some bodies. And then after that's all over, then get into like the chess match stuff. You can do both. You can do both. And my goal this year is to put more meat in the freezer.
Love it. What about you, Tony?
Man, I think the thing that keeps me going, that I think our messaging from top down in the whitetail space is be super cautious, preserve your spots, wait till that buck's daylighting on the cell camera, then go in and hunt him. And we have all these rules, kind of like unspoken rules built in to keep us out of the woods and not try new stuff, like not risk things. And I'm to the point now where when I try new stuff, that's the most fun I have. So like the decoy thing last year, when I really don't have like a ton of faith in it, but I'm like, I'm gonna go down this path. Or that muzzleloader hunt I did last year in western Minnesota in the cattail sloughs, that was the most fun I had last season. I didn't kill a deer, but that new environment that kicks my ass and forces me to solve new problems. I think we go into a season and we're like, I want the hunt to happen like I want it to happen, where I want it to happen, and the whole thing. And, oftentimes it doesn't. But also when we have that mentality, we stay out of the woods. Or like, we're like, well, I'm not going to hunt October 10th when I could wait. And it's going to be October 25th with a cold front. I'm like, man, you're just not going to hunt. And so I'm like, find ways to hunt and try new stuff, like still hunting, like stalking them, whatever, killing one from the ground. Like we always talk about our goals, and everybody defaults to like, I want a buck bigger than one I've ever killed, or I want a 140 class, or I want a mature buck. And I find myself sometimes where I'm like, I'm going to try to kill a doe from the ground in the big woods. And, it's like a little goal, right? But it puts me in a situation where I'm trying new stuff, and it just changes it for me. It like changes how I view the season, and it changes how much I want to go all the time. Because when you have something like that, like if you're like, I'm going to go do that in the beginning of October on some kind of big woods acorn pattern or whatever, you know you're not going to kill a big one. Probably you're probably not going to. You might not even be within the same section as a big one, but you're still actively hunting and trying new stuff. And man, like you said, when you're having fun out there and you're enjoying it, things just fall into place. Like you run into big deer where you're not supposed to, and you kill deer in cool ways, and it's just like it's a different kind of season than being ultra cautious just to like try to have a couple of hunts where your odds are the highest. Like I'm going the other way on that stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I definitely found the more I've experimented in those kinds of ways, the more confidence you build in that. I think a lot of it comes from like just feeling like, oh, I can't do this kind of stuff because you didn't have experience with it. You didn't have the confidence. Everyone tells you not to do that. But as soon as you try a couple of these things and you realize like, oh, this is possible. Oh, this led to a good thing. It opens up the doors for so much more. So yeah, I can attest to that as well. I think my final thought would kind of tag on a little bit to something you mentioned there, which is, just hunt your own hunt this year. And this is something we've talked about for years, but I continue to need to hear it myself, and I continue to want to share with other people because it's just so important. Comparison is the thief of joy. Right, that's a great line. I think I don't know who that came from, but comparison is the thief of joy. As soon as you start comparing yourself to other people and worrying about how big a deer you shoot compared to this other person, or how many deer you shoot compared to the other person, or if this thing's better than this thing, or that guy's better than you, as soon as you start doing that, you start losing the fun. You start stressing out. You start doing things for the wrong reasons. You start going down a path that just doesn't take you anywhere good. And I've been down that path before, and I want to avoid that as much as possible myself. Keep it fun. Hunt for your own reasons. Have your own goals. Don't feel like something you see on Instagram or something you heard on a podcast has to be the same way you do things. Pursue things at the level you're at. Like Dan said, like don't jump straight to trying to hold out for big giant bucks if you've never killed any buck, right? Hunt some does, hunt young bucks, do it shamelessly, be proud, enjoy it, take all of those experiences for what they are. And if you never want to try to kill a big giant buck, great, no big deal. If you do, that's fine too. If you fail a whole bunch along the way, happens to us all. Do things for your own reasons, enjoy it, learn, try new things. And remember, we're not saving the world here. We're deer hunting. So have fun with it. Get out there with your friends and family. Don't do the thing that I have done a lot in the past, which is like skip breakfast with your buddies, or miss out on something important just because you're so obsessed with trying to, not make one possible tiny mistake. Yeah, it's important to work hard. Yeah, it's important to do things the right way, but also give yourself a little bit of grace and enjoy yourself. At least that's the advice that I've needed. So for whatever it's worth, hopefully everybody has a great season. I'm excited to see how it goes for you too. I hope Dan survives his South Dakota adventures, and we'll be able to come here at the end of the season and have some very interesting stories to share. Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Thanks,
good luck,
man.
guys.
All right, and that's going to wrap it up for that one. Hope you enjoyed that. A lot of laughs, a lot of fun. It's exciting for all three of us, I think, to start imagining what this upcoming season might hold. And as you heard, a lot of adventures coming up, a lot of opportunities for some good stories, some lessons learned, and, a little bit of the unexpected, certainly. So thanks for being here. I hope you've got some exciting adventures coming up here soon. I'm wishing you the best of luck if your season is kicking off here soon. And until next time, stay wired to hunt.